Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to talk about this video by Mark Levine, and this was actually broadcast today in Fox News. And I just want to give my commentary of what I think about this video. I want to do videos related with politics, and I just want to give my commentary and just just get the common sense going on. So let's go ahead and check the video out, and from there, subscribe if you like my channel, and give us a like. So let's get it.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levine, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin. You know, the great Rush Limbaugh was a dear friend of mine and a mentor. Once said to me, and I never forgot it, never underestimate the intelligence and knowledge of your audience. Never. Because one day it'll catch up with you. You are the smartest audience of any audience, TV or anywhere else. And that's why you're here on a Sunday evening when you could be doing something else. And that's why when I talk to you as smart people. I don't talk down to you. I don't use bumper sticker labels. I talk about substantive things and have substantive guests. And tonight, especially.
To start with, I gotta stop this, but as the video continues, I'll give my commentary. But normally, when somebody comes to you and starts to say, "Well, you know, I think you're smart, and I think you're, you know, comprehensive, and you understand," what they're basically trying to say is, if you don't accept my point, you're pretty much stupid. So anyway, I don't know if the video is gonna go in that route. I don't know if Levine is going to, I don't know what the point is of the video. But normally when they start like that, and I've been in the media before, that was my major. I know it's already a sign that you either agree with me or you're dumb. So let's keep going.
First, a little history lesson as I set the stage for a further point. The American Revolution, what's that have to do with anything? Everything. We would not have won the American Revolution without the help of the French. And the French paid dearly in treasury. As a matter of fact, they went broke after they helped us during the Revolutionary War. As pointed out by History.com, the French had recently been dealt a humiliating defeat in the 7 Years' War by the British and stripped them of their own North American empire, including Canada. But still, they were loath to declare war on Britain as an official American ally. King Louis XVI permitted secret aid to America's cause beginning in May 1776. The two most powerful men at the court within the monarchy, they had a dispute over whether to commit to supporting America outright or not. But eventually they did. After we won the Battle of Saratoga in October 1777, one of our few victories, by the way, the French Foreign Minister, Charles Grivier, had decided that the French should enter the war 1 month earlier, after the fall of Philadelphia to the British control in September 1777. And that frightened him into thinking that the Patriots would give up without overt French aid. So starting in 1778, right to the end of the Revolutionary War, the French gave us support. 90% of all what I'll call bullets fired during the War of Independence were manufactured by the French. What turned out to be the final battle was the Battle of Yorktown. And the Franco-American forces that had been fighting together fought General Cornwallis, who was a brilliant general, an experienced general of the British. And the French fleet cut off the waters to a smaller British navy because the British thought that we would still be up in New York, given some of the tactics used by Washington to fool them. And the British Navy not only cut off the British ships, but pounded the encampments of the British. And eventually Cornwallis surrendered. He surrendered his 18,000 troops, and that war for independence was over. Couldn't
I don't know what the point is yet, but I think, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the time. This is during a time where the French were actually tyrannical, and they actually were really heavy into, well, at least in the slave trade, they were, and they were pretty brutal with Native Americans as well. And I think one of the reasons what they got in war with, if I'm mistaken, England in the time is because the French, they were trying to expand their empire, and they actually, were trying to get swaths of United States, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, they were against the British. So I think it was basically the French allied with Americans at the time of the colonists, and that was because they were fighting the British. But I don't think that it was because it was a noble cause. I think that it's because they wanted to defeat the British, and that's what they were trying to do. But I don't think it was because of noble cause. But anyway, let's see what he's going through this. Let's see.
Been one without the French. The Ukrainian people are fighting to maintain their independence and their liberty. They did not attack Russia. They have not invaded Russia. They have not sent up concentration camps in Ukraine where they're bringing Russian children and women. They not entered Russia and have committed acts of systemic torture, which the Russians have to the Ukrainians, gang rape, hanging people from ceilings and bridges, brutal genital castration and electric shock treatment, decapitation, burning people alive, crushing their faces with sledgehammers, mass graves. This is from a UN report, and the UN.
Okay, so let's go. Let's stop there real quick. First of all, the British were not, at least they didn't torture colonists the way that the French did, actually. The French were much brutal with natives and just indigenous people, and they were pretty brutal. I remember I was reading about how they, treated Haitians during, in the plantation of sugarcane, and the French were really brutal. So if he's trying to compare Ukraine with the British, or trying to pretend like United States is Ukraine, or I don't know what his point is. The fact is that the French were actually much more cruel than the British were. The British, in comparison, they were actually, I mean, they weren't perfect, but they were better. So I don't think that's a really good point to compare with Ukraine and so forth, so forth. So anyway, we'll see what he says. But the French were really cruel, actually.
Is hardly in the back pocket of the United States and Ukraine. And it just came out. And of course, the Russians are trying to freeze the Ukrainians by hitting energy sources. They're trying to level their apartment buildings. 25% of the Ukrainian population has had to flee as refugees. And as I said, many are being trained into Russia and being enslaved, tortured, and otherwise brutalized. Ukraine isn't doing any of that. Russia took over part of Georgia in 2008. Russia took over Crimea in 2014.
Yeah, but I don't agree with that because Western media. See, this is another problem with I don't like the many of this commentary done by Fox News. In fact, I think probably Tucker Carlson is the one that is more lever when it comes down to news. Uh, the Apparently the Russians, were getting at least the nationalist Russians in Ukraine. They were getting tortured and killed in the Donbass region during Zelensky. So I don't like not mentioning that is very biased to start with because what you're trying to say is now you're trying to say that the Ukrainians were just innocent little lambs, and that's not true. That's it's actually false. Now you might be pro Ukraine, and I understand you have a ideology pro Ukraine, but the Ukrainians are definitely not innocent people. They were killing pro-Russian separatists, and every country has their separatists. And for example, in Quebec, there's a separate movement of French people who want to be independent from Canada. In Spain, there's the Basque country who want to be independent from Spain. And who knows? Maybe Texas wants to be independent from the United States. But every country has people who want to be or want to claim independence. And the Ukrainians were killing that, at least the Ukrainian army was killing uh, a lot of pro-Russian separatists in the Donbass region, but the Western media didn't report on it, so you were getting all this from RT. Now, if your case is that RT is corrupt, then sure, it could be. I don't know, but does that mean that I'm going to trust Western media? So you're telling me to trust? Oh, I can't trust Putin, but you want me to trust the media that's pretty much run by the CIA? And you can say whatever you want, but the talking points of the media are pretty much go to war with Russia. So who is? I mean, the media doesn't have independent thought. It's basically an organization that's representing the sentiment of the government at the higher level. So anyway, let's keep going.
Crimea was part of Ukraine. They did it in 5 days. Nobody lifted a finger to help either Georgia or Crimea. Finland, which was neutral during most of World War II, is not neutral anymore. Finland wants to get into NATO, and Finland supports the Ukrainians and is providing them with whatever equipment they have. Why? Because they know Putin has designs on Finland. How do they know that? Because a year and a half, Putin said so. A year and a half ago, he said so. He also has designs on Poland and Romania and Moldova. How do we know that? Because he said so. Why don't we listen to the man? 2 world wars started in Europe, and we took no action until it was too late. We don't have any troops in Ukraine. We don't have any jet fighters in Ukraine. All we're doing is providing them with the support, kind of the support the French gave us during the Revolutionary War. However, the French actually did more. I am perplexed by those.
Okay, first of all, you're actually claiming that the French gave you support, but you're claiming that a tyrannical empire like the French were giving you support, which were being very cruel with other nations, and definitely in the slave trade, and and just in general, they were not really good conquerors, the French. And you're accepting that the French gave you support, so that's not a good thing. That's like telling me that Al Qaeda was giving you support, and now you're saying that that's cool. The French were terrible colonizers. They exploited the land, and you're admitting that the French gave you support. How does that back up your claim? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And you're claiming all this about Poland and Ukraine, and I understand, and Georgia, but to be honest with you, didn't Russia have an agreement, if I'm not mistaken, in the 90s? I think it was 1997, the NATO United States agreement, where you were not supposed to expand NATO anymore to the border of Russia during Boris Yeltsin. I could be mistaken about this, but I'm pretty sure that there was a treaty, and I'm pretty sure that the United States actually backed off from that treaty. So I don't understand what the point is, because what you're basically saying is, yeah, you're giving the results of what's happening, but you're not telling us how we got there. You see, and this is the problem with a lot of these commentators. They want to just tell you what happened, right? What's the end game, but they didn't tell you how we got there. And if you don't understand how we got there, then this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This is pretty much propaganda. Like, oh, the Russians are at fault, and NATO and Ukraine, they're innocent little puppies, and the United States should still support, which I think this is what he's going to claim, but we'll find out. Let's see.
Who want you to believe, and who believe you are stupid, that this is a war here in the United States between the intellectual elites in Washington and everybody else, we the people. And it's funny that so many people who say this went to private schools and Ivy League schools, and they never went to war while they're pointing fingers at everybody else. And there's a lot of people who haven't gone to war that have turned out to be tremendous leaders, great leaders. Or maybe they dipped their toe in a particular war and didn't do much else, and yet they were great leaders, Lincoln being among them. So that's irrelevant. Do you think if we were to withdraw all aid from Ukraine, that suddenly we would secure the southern border under the Biden administration? How stupid is that? Or suddenly inflation would be reduced? That's even dumber. Or suddenly all things bad Biden and Biden Democrats would turn around, but for what we're doing with Ukraine? Why do people make such imbecilic arguments? And have you also noticed something else? These folks claim to be neutral. They're not neutral. They trash Zelensky. They claim he's some kind of neo-Nazi, even though family members were killed during the Holocaust and he's Jewish. Neo-Nazis? Have you noticed they don't say anything about what Putin is or what Putin does to his own people, to the people in Ukraine? You notice they don't quote Putin when it comes to these statements he made a year and a half ago? You notice?
Okay, so let's go back to that. Yeah, Putin is not a nice guy. He is a reformed Orthodox Russian Christian, which, I think that's a good thing. I think other countries like Hungary support him, and apparently a lot of Serbians do as well. But yeah, he's not an innocent person, but so it's not United States either. Okay, I mean, United States is probably the country that's influenced more warmongering in its history than any other country, and to start blaming Putin for you know trying to warmonger, I mean, that's that's like that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And Zelensky, if I'm not mistaken, Yukigovich at his time was the elected president, pro-Russian, back in 2014, and they got rid of him. And Pedrochenko, if not mistaken, Poroshenko, he was his replacement, and he was technically illegally put there. And then they put Zelensky after him. So for me, Zelensky is just a puppet of the United States, and I don't understand what I mean. Like, United States, at the end of the day, it just does whatever they wants, and they think there's not going to be any consequences for their actions because they're above everybody else. And if you think like that, then you kind of contradict yourself because you started with the example that the French, were helping the Americans, and that's a cooperative thing, but the French were tyrants. So, are you also saying that United States should help as a tyrant country the Ukraine? And why did you try to push Ukraine into NATO? I mean, why are you doing that to start with? I mean, if you were going to do that in the border of Mexico and start pushing an agenda, Mexican government, then probably it wouldn't be a good idea because the United States might invade Mexico because of Russia. So Russia couldn't blame the United States. Why did you do that? Why did you? What did you attack Mexico? Well, you're building weapons, or you're working with the Mexicans. And didn't the United States do that in the Bay of Pigs back in well, I mean, Cuba was always communist, but I'm pretty sure that they invaded Cuba, or at least it was a proxy war where they used the CIA. But isn't Russia using the Wagner Group in order to intervene? That's because a lot of the mercenaries that are fighting Ukraine, at least a certain percentage, are from the Wagner Group. So United States blaming Russia is it's just hypocrisy. It's just absolutely hypocrisy. And Zelensky is not the leader. We don't even know where all these funds are going to, and it's definitely, after watching a tour of his mansion, I'm not really sure that that's really going to the rest of the people. But anyway, let's see what this guy says.
What they don't tell you, and I tell you because you're the smartest audience of all audiences.
Smartest audience.
NATO dismisses Russian demand to withdraw from Romania and Bulgaria. Did you know that during the negotiations before Russia invaded Ukraine, they insisted that Romania and Bulgaria leave NATO? People keep talking about our insisting on countries go in. Well, they said, no, we're not going to leave NATO because they're scared of the Russians. Russia had deployed 127,000 troops near Ukraine's border at the time. Russia said, we're not.
Yeah, but they're smart for doing that because once again, you are putting them in a position just even trying to tell them to join NATO or to be part of it, or to be part of this elite of nations that was created to destroy the Soviet Union, which NATO should be already banished a long time ago. You're already saying that you're putting them in a hard position. So of course they're going to reject it. They're not. They're going to say no. They're smart, but you were pushing Ukraine because Ukraine is a very corrupt country, more than Bulgaria is.
Not invading. No. They deny any intention of invading Ukraine. And most of the Putiniks in this country and Putinoids and mouthpieces for Russia agreed with them. I guess they were wrong, wouldn't you say? The independent.
So if that makes me a Putin supporter, you're a neocon. That's what it is. You are pro-Israel, and that's how I see it. I don't know what your war is about. You're a neocon. You just want to destroy Russia because they're surpassing you in many different ways. That's how I see it. I mean, if you say put labels on people, but now you're saying Putin or whatever. In the beginning, didn't he say that? Didn't he say that he doesn't put any labels on people? And now he's putting a label on people, calling Putinist or whatever it comes whatever is in his head. I mean, this guy's a hypocrite. Go ahead.
Of England. Not just about Ukraine, why Romania is one of Kiev's strongest supporters in the Russia dispute. Why? Why is Romania, of all countries?
Because they want to.
We must be prepared for any possible scenario, says their president. This crisis is not just about Ukraine's security on the Black Sea or European security, but about the security of Euro-Atlantic area. You know who has designs on the Black Sea right now? Putin. That's why he took out our drone. But he's been harassing all of our jets over the Black Sea.
This guy is, I don't know, this guy is either getting paid by the U.S. government to speak nonsense or whatever. First of all, when you're going to Eastern Europe, okay, and you bear the consequences of this war, they're the ones who are going to live through it, okay? Not you, not United States. United States is across the continent, okay? It's across the sea, the Atlantic Sea. So they are the ones who have to bear the consequences of bad policy by Europe. So it's obvious that some of them are going to join Europe. And some, I mean, I don't think Europeans are against joining Europe. I think the problem is that some countries just don't want to join NATO because the United States might be pushing for a proxy war with Russia. And I mean, it's just common sense. I still don't know like what this guy is about, but it's what he's saying. His talking points are ridiculous.
Communist China wants the South China Sea. Putin wants the Black Sea.
And what does the United States want? Well, why don't you talk about that? What does the United States want? See, it's everybody else but the United States.
Think about it. Fox, senior Russian official threatens Polish borders as Moscow mounts aggression against other European nations. Well, what is this about? Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, remember him? Issued a direct threat against NATO after he called on Moscow to push Western defenses outside of Ukraine and across the borders of Poland. Just a month ago. Why are we ignoring this? Exclusive. This was the other day. Russia's secret document for destabilizing Moldova. All these European press outlets have access to this document, as do we. Yahoo News obtained it. It's an internal strategy. Putin's presidential administration reveals Moscow's plans for Moldova. It's a small country, about 2.5, 3 million people, and he wants to take it over. And he's pushing a coup. He's pushing unrest through pro-Russian militia, Russian-speaking peoples, and that's what he's done in these other countries.
That's what the United States does with every country. Didn't they do that with the Sandinista movement? Putting death squads in, was it in Panama, if not mistaken? It was Nicaragua, sorry. They also intervened. Noriega, if not mistaken, in Panama. The United States intervened in the presidential elections of Brazil. They've done all sorts of things. What are you? Putin is just trying to secure his border to make sure there's no NATO issue, whereas the United States goes around the world in places where it doesn't belong and tries to basically make it theirs just because, it's United States and they want to keep the petrodollar and, create these democracies and whatever, and to be pro-United States. It's all in the Russian border. It's all in Russia's border. Everything is in Russia's border. So Russia would have a right to do that. It's just common sense, man.
Black Sea will become totally ours, Russia-appointed governor says. Pay attention to what these people are saying. The Black Sea, which is bordered by 2 European countries, Bulgaria and Romania, as well as Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, Russia, and Turkey, is of strategic and economic importance to Moscow, largely because of the transit routes it provides.
I
I
can
want
tell
to
you right
clap when
now,
we will have the Black.
I can tell you right now that Turkey and Russia, after there was a jet drowned because the Russians had. There was a few years ago. It passed through Turkish airspace and it got shot down. But I can tell you that the Russians will share the Black Sea with the Turkish. I don't think the Russians want to go to war with Turkey. But once again, this guy's a warmonger, so he's telling you already what the future holds.
C2 said the governor of this area, appointed recently by Putin, we have it, but it'll be totally ours. He referred to an address given previously by Putin, in which the Russian president spoke about what special attention is now being paid to Russia. Quote, development of the new rival, the restoration and full inclusion, not only legally, but also physically, with all our natural riches, with all our recreation facilities, hundreds of kilometers of beaches, hundreds of thousands of hectares and fertile land and so forth. Wow. But we're the warmongers? No. Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, North Korea. How can you be an American firster and keep accusing America of being a warmonger?
First of all, you are nobody to tell anybody who's a warmonger and who's not. But if you look at the history of the past 100 years, okay, even at the Vietnam War, okay, even the Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh was asking for help after the French occupied the same French that you say helped you, which were terrible colonizers and exploited a lot of the people who were in Vietnam. Exploited, okay, people there. The Vietnamese fought hard to take him away. They weren't even part of Soviet Russia at that point, but they were trying to get help, and you guys ignore them, right? And what happens? You guys came there to intervene in a war that wasn't even yours in Vietnam, and you call yourself that you guys are United States is a warmongering country. That's just the truth, okay? And this guy lives in an alternative cloud with the rest of warmongers where they just, live a happy life. There's things that are going on in the country where people are struggling. Okay? Right now people are really struggling. Okay? There's a homeless crisis. Okay? Why don't you wage war on homelessness and try to help people out? Veterans and people who actually join stupid wars like Iraq. Remember Iraq? What happened in Iraq? Yeah. Oh, this guy, I guarantee this guy was all over Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, Afghanistan. We got to take out, Bin Laden. Uh, Listen, people are not stupid, okay? People are not stupid. And you coming here and telling people that, they're not patriotic, or how can you support this guy, bro? How can you support the US government after so many issues in the past related with war and just taking advantage of other countries as well, their natural resources? I mean, these people live in a different planet. These people live in a different planet. I'm surprised there's a democracy in the United States. I wouldn't be surprised the military takes over at one point.
Oh, it's the elitists versus the people. I'm sick of elitists telling us they're part of the people when they're
You're an
elitists
elite too.
who spend most of their time on the East Coast, especially in Washington, D.C. And our military budget has been going down, 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 down. Does that sound like a nation that's a warmongering nation? Do you believe Americans are warmongers? And what about our businesses? They're under attack too. No. Not the ones that should be. I'm talking about those defense contractors. We're supposed to hate them too because, they're just making money out of this.
Yeah, they are.
Those defense contractors are developing the technologies, the cutting edge technology that we need to defeat the enemy and protect our soldiers in the field and our airmen in the sky. Where do you think the jets come from? The other weaponry comes from? Where do you think lasers come from and radar comes from and GPS systems come from? Why would we be attacking patriotic, pro-American companies that are doing what we ask them to do? So good that the Chinese and Russians keep trying to steal their technology. They're the ones pushing us into war? Well, name them. Who exactly? At Lockheed Martin or General Dynamics, who's pushing us into war?
I'll tell you who's pushing us to war. You are. You are, sir. You are pushing us to war. MSNBC, 75% of Fox News, except for Tucker Carlson, I think he's the only voice of reason. CNN, the Young Turks, all of them were pushing us to war. Honestly, only I think The Hill is about the only trustworthy media, to be honest. Democracy Now, even though they're, progressive, I still think they have good reports. But NPR, the rest of them are absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. And you are pushing us to war because instead of reporting the things that are going on, what you're doing is you're repeating the propaganda that you got from your bosses, from your editorial board to talk about this. It's unbelievable how this is insane. What you trying to promote for us to go to war? Like Zelensky said, you should sacrifice your sons and daughters. Have you got insane, bro? Why don't you fight the war? Don't show by example, lead by example. Grab your weapon and go to Ukraine, right? Oh, that's right. You want the sons and daughters of U.S. Families of Americans to die, but it's very easy for you that we should support Ukraine. These guys are hypocrites, man. I don't understand how we have politics working at this
Which
time.
one? Which members of the board of directors? Please tell us. Please tell us. Because as far as I'm concerned, I can't see any. Under the Biden budget, we warmongers, you know, the Environmental Protection Agency gets a 19% increase. The National Science Foundation, 19%. Treasury, 15%. Agriculture, 14%. Education Department, 14%. Health and Human Services, 11%. State and USAID, 11%. Labor, 11%. Commerce, 11%. Interior, 9%. Energy Department, 9%. NASA, 7%. Justice Department, 6%. Defense, 3%.
Yeah, and that's the budget we don't know about because there's other budgets too that we don't know about, unfortunately, and they're not going to be reporting them. But okay, sir.
Doesn't even keep up with the rate of inflation. It's an effective cut while all this is going on. And of course, China, Iran, North Korea, we decide that this is just a territorial dispute or that we should just get out of here. You know, it's just costing too much money and so forth. They won't read anything into that. Our surrender in Afghanistan, they read everything into it. But a surrender in Ukraine, when the Ukrainian people are fighting, that won't affect anybody. That'll be just fine. I read some of these statements from some of these Republican candidates.
What do we have to do with Ukraine? If the United States got invaded, the Ukrainians wouldn't be there for us. The Ukrainians wouldn't be there for us, and I guarantee that in the future, all this that we done for Ukraine, right? All these weapons, the Germans have give them tanks, and they're almost depleted with tanks. All these things we done for them. I guarantee they'll backstab us in the end. I guarantee they will backstab us. Because that's what happens. There's no such thing as friendships in states. It's just pretty much interest. And right now it benefits Ukraine that we help them out. But does it really benefit Ukraine or is it really benefiting Zelensky? You see? Who is it really benefiting? That would be an interesting question to ask yourself.
Some which were very good, some not so in my view. But one thing I notice is very little is said about Russia and Putin and their threat to us, and they're making threats against us, and their threat to Eastern Europe, and eventually Western Europe, and their threats of nukes, and all the other things that they're doing, the access between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea.
Dude, the Russians were working with the Germans under Merkel. They had a good relationship. But it was you who was trying to push for a war because you wanted to sell that energy to the Germans because the Russians now have their own energy. They are a powerhouse in OPEC and other BRIC economies as well. And you are the ones, United States and the media was pushing for all these different countries to be destabilized. But the Russians were working with the Germans. They were giving them gas. What's wrong with that? Of course, Russia is going to benefit from it. You benefit too from your radio show or whatever, TV show, or whatever. Everybody's going to benefit if you do something, but you can't attack the Russians just because you might be a baby boomer who still believes that the Russians are the Soviet Union. Putin is an Orthodox Christian, okay? A converted one. He's not a Soviet. He doesn't have a Soviet man. He's not prosecuting the Orthodoxy or any of that. But you guys use everything like he does against a weapon. He's not an innocent person, but neither are you. Come on, man.
Which is real. I didn't see a lot of that in their statements. It's time for leaders to step up. I don't care what they say on MSNBC and CNN. This is not a battle between rhinos and the populists,
No, you
whatever
do
that
care
means,
because
and
they're
they can't
putting
even
your same
define
points.
themselves. This is a battle between patriots and conservatives and pacifists of both parties. Think about it. You are smart.
Okay. This guy is delusional. He's a warmonger. He's a neocon. He comes here and all that he's trying to do is trying to hype up people so we can rile a war against Russia. That's what he's trying to do. That's all he's trying to do. Russia and Putin had never declared war on the United States. The Russians have their own interest, and you got to respect that. Every country has their own interest. It just because Russia went to the Middle East, right, and helped Ben Assad, the dictator there, because United States policy under Hillary Clinton was a complete and utter disaster in the Middle East, killed millions of people through constant civil wars sparked by revolutions that were started by the United States. Russia is doing what they're supposed to do. If they're having good relationships or bilateral relationships with Saudi Arabia, well, what do? What you do is you try to become a better partner with Saudi Arabia because you're going to have to work with all these countries. All these countries have a different interest. But the thing that bothers me is that you, bro, are sending money. You're promoting to send money to Ukraine. And that's the problem. You want to send money to Ukraine, but you don't want to help Americans. There's so many people who need the money, so many people struggling, sending all this money to Ukraine. And who's going to pay for that? Taxpayers. And at the end of the day, these people are warmongers. All they want you is to listen to what they say, to be like a puppet. They feed on your ignorance. And, it doesn't matter if you're liberal, progressive, or conservative. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what you believe. All they want you is to serve their own interest. In the end, they'll use all these different things, but all they want is their self-interest. So, with that said, I'll leave it with that. If you like what I said in my comments, subscribe to my channel. And, also give us a like. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out and to the next.